Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The Spa and Spa Life, the SPA, is for Seek Power Always, that power within you to do your greater work in the world. I am so fired up today to introduce my special guest, Michelle Norris, who is the owner, co-founder, and the CEO of Paleo FX, the largest paleo platform and event in the world, which has been featured in the New York Times, the Huffington Post, the Telegraph, and Men's Health. You're going to be able to hear here today that this isn't just about food or diet, but this is about a lifestyle. Michelle has been featured in Good Morning San Diego, Good Morning Austin, KRIV Houston Health Watch, and a featured chef on the Paleo Kitchen TV Show. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Diane.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We're in such wild times, and this is such a great time to have conversations around how we're pivoting and what we're doing different. And we'll talk about how you're pivoting and shifting in this market. But first, for those who have not heard about what paleo is, can you just share a little bit about what it is and why has this been part of your life passion?
Okay, so for us, paleo isn't just about a diet. A lot of people just refer to it like as the caveman diet, but really paleo is about a lifestyle. So we have a couple of things that we believe in at Paleo FX. The first being that paleo is actually about removing all the toxins from your life. It's not just the toxins that you put in your mouth, it's the toxins you put on your body, it's the toxins that you put in your home to clean, that kind of thing. It's about what do you give your pets too, because this is part of your environment. Your pets are part of your environment, and the things that you give to them should also be as clean as what you put into your mouth. The other part of that is toxic people and toxic thoughts. We have our own, internal dialogue always going on, and many times that dialogue is very negative. And the problem with that is that we actually manifest what we believe in and what we focus on. So if your thoughts are focused always on negative pieces of yourself or others, you're going to get more of that. So focusing on positive is much more beneficial and much more productive. So that's really paleo in a nutshell. As far as Paleo FX is concerned, we believe in 7 pillars of health. And in order for a person to be fully optimized, a fully optimized human, really happy, really healthy, you need to have all 7 pillars of health firing. And so the first one is, of course, physical health. Then it's mental health, emotional health, relational health, spiritual health, financial health, and last and probably the most important is tribal health. And of course, we're all seeing that right now, considering that we are having to physically distance, and we are referring to it as physically distancing, not social distancing, because you're seeing some of the most creative ways for us to come together and socialize and be social with each other right now. So we have been referring to it as we're having to physically distance, but we don't have to socially distance. So we're actually coming together in a much more social way and in much more inventive ways, because we are tribal people and we need our tribe for us to be healthy and for us to stay in a positive state of mind and for us to have really good immunity. And one of the things that we talk about at Paleo FX is becoming hard to kill. So your immunity is super important to that, and you need to be resilient and you need to be adaptable. And so those are the things that are really crucial in a time like this, with this virus that's kind of all these unknowns. We just don't know what the deal is. So having all these things in place, and really right now is probably the best possible time for you to create really healthy habits for yourself, because you have time and space for that. And a lot of times we don't create that for ourselves because we don't have bandwidth. Or at least we tell ourselves, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time for all of these things. Well, you've got lots of time right now. So let's create that healthy pattern, because all it takes is 21 days to create a habit, and you're going to have more than 21 days left in quarantine, more than likely. And that's not being negative, it's just being realistic. We're likely to need a little bit more time to flatten the curve so that we can get through this situation. So right now is the perfect time to start getting your health in order.
Yeah, I love that so much. I'm such a huge performance and proponent of lifestyle and your environments just being such a huge thing to look at. And I love the approach to it, because it isn't just about, the diet. It is about our relationships and how we're viewing our life. And, how is it that you're helping your clients, or what are you doing personally with, there's so much negativity that is spinning out there, and there's a lot of fear, right? And we know that, the mindset is such a huge component of how we're operating and how we're showing up in the world and how it actually affects our outlook. Can you speak to, especially during this time, that we actually need to be our own doctor and take 100% responsibility for our own health, and how we can really bridge that fear and shifting that in our mindset so it actually supports our health?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So one of the other things that we believe is that it's not just your right, it is your responsibility to take control of your health. Doctors mean well, and they have great intentions, obviously, because they got into what they're doing to save lives and to help people. But at the end of the day, particularly here in the United States, the capacity that they have based on the Obamacare Act and all of these things, they don't have the time to be your health advocate. You have to do that work. That has to be you, because there's nobody that's more interested in your health than you. I'm hoping that you're very interested in your health.
Right.
And the other piece of it is not seeing your health as a cost, but seeing your health as an investment. You either need to put the money in now, or you're going to put a whole lot more money in later. And not only are you going to put a whole lot more money in later, it is going to cost you in quality of life. It is going to likely become a burden to your family. And I can tell you, for me, the idea of becoming a burden to my husband or to my children is not acceptable. I don't feel like that's something that is okay for me to do. And so taking control of your health is so key and is so important, because you're the only one. That's the other thing, is you're the only one that actually knows how you feel. You're the only one that can tap in, and the diagnostic tool that you have here, that's this vehicle, that's this meat suit that you get this one go round, is such an incredible tool for you, because it'll tell you what it needs. It constantly will tell you if you listen and if you take the time to do what it asks you to do. And so that is like super key. The other piece that I've been talking to people about as I've been on lots of podcasts, doing lots of lives, is controlling what you can control. And that's right here. That's all you can control. You cannot control anything that's outside of yourself. To a very small extent, you can, if you have children, you can control what's happening in your house. That's about it. But you still can't control how your kids respond and react to things. And that's just the way it is. You can help guide them, and guiding them to response instead of reaction is really super key for keeping their bodies and their central nervous systems down regulated, so that they are not in fight or flight. So many people right now are in fight or flight, and when you're in fight or flight, you don't have access to your prefrontal cortex, which is where you make good decisions. So we need access to this. So keeping ourselves out of fight or flight so that we can make really good decisions, especially if you have children, is so important. And the other part of it too is not just controlling what you can control, but it's also about letting go of the things that you cannot control and that you don't, that we have a tendency to be very married to outcomes, and not being married to an outcome and actually accepting that, okay, I'm in fear. I'm in fear around the fact that I might get this coronavirus. I'm in fear around the fact that I might die. That is very real, and that is obviously very normal right now. What you want to do is do all the things. When you stay in that fear space, you're actually taking your immune system down. Yes. So acknowledging, I just had a really great Facebook Live with Hal Elrod. He's the author of Miracle Morning. And one of the things that he said, and it was so important and so perfect for right now, is he said, be aware of the worst case scenario, and then accept the worst case scenario, and don't live there. Now live in where you prepare and you stay in a positive mindset, and you tell yourself, I will not succumb to this. I will not get sick. I will not, whatever. And you go through that process. And the thing is that I'm okay if I end up getting this coronavirus. If I haven't already had it already, I may have already had it. And I had a little bit of an illness in the beginning of February. My husband got really, really sick, and so did a couple of our friends. And I had one day of coughing, respiratory, and sore throat, and a fever, and then mine went away. So we're thinking that we might have actually had it. But if I haven't had it, if I get it, I know that I know how to take care of myself. I know how to take care of my body. I know how to keep my immunity up, and I've been doing that, doing all the practices, meditating, visualization, affirmation. I affirm that my body is healthy and strong, and that if I get it, it will fight it off. And so if you tell yourself those things, you actually manifest what happens in your life by your thoughts and by your verbal, especially if it's out loud, your verbal action brings things to life. And so focusing on what you want and not what you don't want, focusing on what you want is what grows. So right. I just believe if you are really, if you really just sit down and really calm yourself and accept that, okay, I might get this. You know, the thing is that I know for many, many people that it's very real and that there have been deaths, and that is very bothersome. And the other part of that too is the majority of these people had underlying issues. If you have underlying issues, do all the things that boost your immunity. Do, you know, take the things that you've been being told probably for a while to take to boost your immunity, supplements, that kind of thing, eating properly. So key, especially right now. We are, many times we are emotional eaters. Really try to hone in on that and try to get that part under control so that you are eating stuff that is actually really healthy for your body and that will boost your immunity, and really try to stay away from the stuff that's, you know, junk food, all of that stuff. I mean, you know, there's a time and a place for that stuff. Right now is not that time and not that place. And so if you are doing all of these things to really boost your immunity, you're going to do yourself a world of favors. If in fact you end up with COVID-19, you can fight it off. You'll be able to fight it off. It might not be pleasant, and you know, that's okay. But there's one thing that I also believe in too. There's a huge message here. There's a little bit of a gift here in what's happening to us. And if we all will look at that side of it, the positivity, I honestly believe that this is the divine, Mother Nature, all of those things telling us, slow down. We need some time to rejuvenate and take time. You guys need to stop. Like, I really believe that this is a whole planetary thing where the planet needed a break, and we were just not listening. And now we have no choice but to listen. And now we're having this time where we can get, you know, go back to basics of just basic health and basic human connection. And I feel like that this is a big, huge gift and a message to all of us. Right. I know this may not seem like a gift to a lot of people. A lot of people have lost their jobs, don't have income. Totally hear you. We're right there with you. We've had no income for 5 weeks. So I totally understand that. The thing is that I know that there is a message, and I believe after, you know, we lost our daughter, Brittany, almost 11 years ago. And through that process, we found beauty in her ashes. And then, of course, because of her death, Paleo FX ended up ultimately being born out of her death. Out of her ashes came that beauty, and it's changed tens of thousands of people's lives, and it still does to this day. And so I know that if I had not been seeking the beauty, I would have missed it. So right. See beauty in this, because there is something there, because everything ultimately comes for our good. And so if we look for that, we will find it. If you look for the negative, you're definitely going to find it. It's always there. So right. If we focus on what's the positive part of this, what's the gift in this? Are you finally getting an opportunity, even though maybe you lost your job or whatever, but you're finally getting an opportunity to stay home and rest and have a break?
Right.
Don't spend your time all in fear and worry or whatever, because I can tell you there's a lot of people out there willing to help, people who have lost their jobs. And of course, we know that the stimulus package is doing things to try to help people, and it's getting funded like yesterday, and all of these things. And then
Right.
there's Facebook groups like IntelliHelp, which a good friend of mine, Ron Lynch, launched, and it's there for helping people, and it's all over the world. I mean, I don't even know how many people are in there. It started out as a few hundred people here in Austin, and now it's worldwide. But it's where you can get help. You can go in and ask for the things that you need, and people will actually volunteer to come help you, especially if you can't go anywhere. If you are immunocompromised and you can't get anywhere and you don't have a job and things, reach out, because there are lots of people willing to help right now and trying to get you help. And so if you try to stay in the positive mindset and accept this for the gift that it ultimately will be, right now it might not be easy to see that, but I honestly believe that at the end of this, we're going to see a very different planet. We're going to see a very different United States. And my hope is that, we came together and we were just so awesome with each other after 9/11 here. But then that went away, because right now, all we are concerned about is that we're all humans and that we're all in this together right now.
Right.
And nobody cares about the color of skin right now. Nobody cares about what your gender bias is. Who do you love? All of these things. Nobody cares about any of that right now. And that is where we need to live. And my hope is we don't take this for granted, that we carry this on after we get to the other side of it, that we recognize that it's not my responsibility, and it's not for me to decide who somebody loves. It's not for me to decide who is, if my skin is lighter than somebody else's, that I'm more superior or whatever. That's just not true. We're all humans, and the commonality among all of us is that we are human beings, plain and simple. That is it.
Right.
And if we see each other as human beings and stop seeing each other as somebody else to control, we're going to be a whole lot better off. And then this will be probably one of the biggest gifts we've ever received.
Right. And I love, Michelle, just how you've shifted this, and this is totally in alignment with your business and your outlook on life, and your vision is, focusing on that positivity. I love the fight and flight type of scenarios, because when I was with the police department, we always had to pre-plan. I can remember, like, on the street going, okay, you've got to prepare, you've got to have the plan of what you're doing. But then you have to look at, okay, most of those things don't actually happen, right? And so you look at, how are you going to respond? Because if we are in reaction mode, we aren't coming from the part of our head that can actually make good decisions and do things really well for ourselves. And I believe that certain things like this become a catalyst for how we operate differently and how we're going to be in the world. And, I so appreciate you sharing about Brittany, because, it's such a challenging thing to come back from a loss of a child. My last case was a kidnapping murder case of a 7-year-old who I knew. They were friends and neighbors of ours. And that shifted my life forever, of how I looked at things. And when you have such a life-changing event that happens, it does become a catalyst to either sink really low, or to look at, how can I actually make something beautiful come of this? And I think this is an opportunity, because I think there are a lot of people who are in a place where they're like, it's shifting everything, and you're seeing how are people pivoting and how they're utilizing this as a way to be better humans, to actually show up differently and do things in a different way. Now, Michelle, you've been a featured speaker in a lot of different platforms. In fact, for those who just don't know a lot about her background, Michelle has been a speaker at SXSW Health Expo, Ancestral Health Symposium, Conscious Media Festival, Society of Women Entrepreneurs, Health Optimisation Summit, and the Academy of Regenerative Practices Conference. And people look forward to you being part of, this. You talk about the human family and having that connection. How are you can be keeping the connection with people, feeling that sense of community that you being part of those have been in the past? How are you pivoting in the future to continue to have that communal feeling?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. So right now, obviously, we're seeing, I love this because, necessity is the mother of invention. So you're seeing probably some of the most creative things coming out of this. I marvel at people's humor. I like, they come up with some of the best stuff. Like, one of the things that I said, one of the things that I saw a meme the other day was, your grandparents were called to war. You're being called to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. You can do this. And I was like, oh my God, that's so hilarious, because, but this is, it's really trying. It's really, we thrive on connection. We thrive on tribe. And right now, and especially I feel for people who are, especially the elderly right now, that are really being isolated. And for, you know, people who are single, they already feel isolation in a lot of ways, especially around holidays. So this is very difficult for a lot of people to be isolated from other people. And so we're seeing people come up with really great things, like Saturday night, when one of our friends had a virtual dance party on Zoom and did it as a fundraiser for Just Like My Child, Vivian Glick and JJ Virgin. And it was so amazing for people to just come together, and we could see each other on the screen. We had light. It was great.
Yeah.
So you're seeing lots of that stuff. And so I think you'll see a lot more of that as we move forward. When people can't get together, they're going to can't this. And so I can't tell you how many virtual dinner parties now I've been to. And that was the second dance party that I was at. And then there's, you know, all of these different things. And so what's interesting for Paleo FX, we, so one of, you know, lots of talk for the last year or so was that we were probably going to head into a recession by the end of this year, the beginning of next year. And our economy is cyclical. We have had a really good economy for 13 years.
Winter's coming.
Yeah. So it was, at some point it's going to come. And so we started preparing. We started making sure that we were going to be shifting a lot of stuff online, because obviously live events, people want to be at a live event because there's just something about that human connection and the palpable energy, and being in a place where you're with a lot of like-minded people. When you're with your tribe, it's just completely different. So I don't think anything will ever completely replace a live event. And I think that you'll see live events actually really explode after this is over with, because people are craving that connection and closeness and proximity to each other. And so we were already shifting to doing a lot of stuff online and creating a lot of other things when we were notified. So South by Southwest was canceled on March the 7th. And on March the 8th, the city of Austin determined that any event over 2,500 people before May 1st had to comply with their strategic risk and mitigation plan. And when I read it, I was like, I can't comply with this. So I'm just going to take control. We're going to we contacted Palmer Event Center, which is where we hold Paleo FX, and City of Austin, and we moved our dates. We rescheduled before we were told you can't have your event. And which they ended up walking that back. About 4 days later, no events were happening over 50 people in Austin before May 1st. And then that even got walked back 3 days after that to 10. So right now we're at no more than 10 people can gather. And so, and then actually, I think right now we're in shelter in place now. So that's even out of the door. Anyway, so we were already planning to have things ready to roll out at Paleo FX that was going to be online. So that shifted us forward to 2 months. So our team was like, oh, okay, so now we're not doing the live event. Now we're doing this. Okay. So they were planning on doing that work now this month as we rolled up to the event, because everything for the event would have been done. And so now they're working on some of that. And we're trying to do a lot of that because we want to help particularly our exhibitors and sponsors who were anticipating this event, needed this event for their bottom line, really trying to make sure that we don't lose any of our exhibitors and sponsors' businesses, because their businesses are all really crucial to the health and to the momentum and to the vibrancy of our entire movement, of our paleo movement. And that's one thing that we have kind of gotten away from too, is there's not as much of the nutrition and diet in our event. Very little bit is left in our event. Really now we tell people, you need to test, because my paleo diet doesn't look the same as my husband's, doesn't look the same as my best friend's, doesn't look the same as your diet. It would not, none of us would have a diet that's completely perfectly in alignment with each other, because we all have different genetic makeup. We have different epigenetics, and our epigenetics play a much larger role than our genetics do. And which probably a lot of people are like, well, how's that possible? It's because your epigenetics can actually control your DNA and change your DNA. We are the only, hang on, I've got this because I've written this down, and I think this is such an amazing quote. I was speaking at the Academy of Regenerative Practices, and Dr. Christopher Shade was speaking there. And one of the things he said was, humans are the only organism that can have a thought and change their entire chemical makeup in their body.
That's huge.
That's powerful. Like, I mean, if you have no idea how powerful your thoughts are, right, that is proof positive from Dr. Christopher Shade. He's the one that said this, and it's so key. Right. That means that your thoughts end up ultimately in action. So
right. We have to look at all the aspects of our environments, right? Because they all have an effect, especially when you're talking epigenetics. You know, this is why I love that you're such a big proponent of looking at all the different toxins that are in your environment, because, you know, eating just like one thing that has a toxin, you know, component to it can also alter your DNA. We have to look at everything has an imprint, and everything actually affects, which reminds me, because I think environments are such a huge thing. One of the things I love asking the guests is, you know, especially since you're at home now, is that, you know, we have different experiences in different rooms of our home. We feel differently in our bedroom versus our office, our kitchen. What's your favorite room in your home, and why?
My favorite room in my home is my bedroom, because it's like my sanctuary. It's where I meditate. It's where I start my day. It's where I end my day. I spend the most time there. And it's comfortable. And I read there. I meditate. I do my affirmations. I do my visualizations there. And so it's that's probably the most important room in the house to me.
Yeah, no, I love that. You know, I'd love for you also to speak a little bit, because we are shifting how we're showing up as leaders and what that actually looks like. And I'd like you to speak a little bit to authentic feminine leadership.
Oh, wow. So I started down a spiritual journey that involves plant medicines 6 years ago. Yeah, a little over 6 years ago. And it has completely changed my trajectory in my business and in my personal life, and particularly how I show up in the world. I didn't realize until doing plant medicines is really understanding that how I was showing up was very masculine, and it wasn't authentic to who I truly am. So this is one of the things I think the women really struggle with that are in leadership or in positions of power, is that they try to mimic masculine energy or masculine power, because we're working in a men's world. And so we think that when we do that we are actually doing things like men do. Well, we aren't. We're not even close, because we mimic it incorrectly, because it's not authentic to who we are. So when it shows up, what happens is you'll hear a woman say, well, if a man did that, he'd be called assertive, but when I do it, I get called a bitch. Right. And it's like, well, yeah, because we're not actually mimicking that the way men actually do. So just for instance, this is an example. When a while back, my whole thing was, if I didn't like what somebody was saying, or I didn't agree, my thing was, well, I'm the CEO, so I say so. And that was my pat answer. And all my business partners were men. And it was really difficult too, because I show up in a much more emotional capacity, because I make a lot of my decisions based on emotion and feeling and all of that stuff. I'm an empath. So that's the other piece, is that I have to go on gut response for me to feel like it's the right answer or it's the right direction. And so, so my male partners sometimes didn't quite get that and didn't understand it. And there was tension and there was problems. And once I recognized that, oh, if I operate in feminine, if I am that yen and I don't try to be the controlling, what I recognized one night at my download was I don't want control, because for one, it's an illusion. We don't have control. That's all made up in our head that we control things. This is what we can control. That's really all we can control. And you can either respond or you can react. React usually is knee jerk and comes out sideways and doesn't, and it's not using prefrontal cortex. It's usually from a place of fight or flight. And so that's when we react. And if we respond, it's taking everything in, it's taking time, it's breathing through it, and it's intentional and it's mindful, and then we respond. So I recognized that I didn't want control. I wanted influence, because if I had influence, if people respected me and trusted me, that was the key. They trusted me that they would follow my lead. And so that's where everything shifted for me, was that I recognized that I couldn't be this is my way. It's no, and nobody gets a say, and and once I allowed my team to have ownership of their positions and bring to the table their ideas, it changed everything. Because this was the other piece, and I'm just throwing myself totally under the bus here. But for until 2016, Paleo FX was only me. There was nobody else working in Paleo FX. I had one person that would come on board for the last 4 months before the event and do social media, take that over from me. I was doing all the social media. I was doing everything. And we couldn't afford anybody. So I hired my very first employee at the end of 2015, in December of 2015, and they took over the social media at that point. They came on board permanently at that point. And so that was my first employee. And so I was doing everything all myself. So when we finally got to the point where we actually hired team members and they were coming on board and they were doing stuff, when they would come in, they would be like, well, we just do a really crappy job of this and blah, 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 blah. And then they would tell me how we needed to do it this way instead. Well, I took that personally. And I recognized, I was actually at, I don't know if you're familiar with Alex Sharfin, but he's one of my business coaches. And I was at an event that he was holding, and my whole team was there. They were all sitting next to me. My husband was sitting next to me. My business partners were there. And I had this, I don't even know what he said, but I remember when he said it, all of a sudden it hit me that my team was not out to get me, that my team was actually on my side, and that they were actually wanting the best for Paleo FX. And what I recognized was I was taking all of these new ideas they all had, and when they would come to me and they would say, oh, well, we do a really crappy job at this, I took that part personally. Like, wait a minute, I'm the one that did that. Don't tell me it wasn't good enough, because right. That's just, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so it was hard. And once I recognized that was the deal, and I told them all, look, when you come to me, I actually got really emotional. And in fact, Alex had cameras, thank you. He had cameras at this event, and he brought the camera right over, and he's like, okay, I see something's happening with you. I was really emotional. I was crying. And he said, what's going on? And that's when I said, my team is not out to get me. And my team all looked at me like, what? And I was like, let me explain. And I was like, I take it very personal when they say something about making Paleo FX better. I miss that part. And the only thing I hear is how we didn't do it right to begin with. And of course, I'm the one that did it, so it's me. So I was taking that all personally. So we had this little role that we played, that whenever they had an idea, if they started infringing and triggering me to feel defensive about what we did in the past, it was like, just come to the table and tell me your great idea. Don't tell me how bad we were in the past. Don't even talk about the past. But if they did accidentally, because they wouldn't do it intentionally.
Sure.
We had this really ugly half baby, half animal, half dog, whatever it was. And I would lift up the picture of it saying, "You're calling my baby ugly." And they would stop. And then they would reframe and start going in the right direction.
Right.
And so that was when I started explaining to him, I trust all of you to take care of this baby. I trust you. So
good distinction.
Yeah, but it was that maternal instinct of it's like when you hear somebody ruffle your feathers over the way that you parent, you take that personally. This is your baby, and why wouldn't you be doing everything that's the best for your baby? How could anyone dare tell you that what you're doing isn't the best? Right. That was how it felt. And so and that's the great thing about women is our nurturing instinct, our instinct to take care of things, to make everything right, works beautifully in a business and can save us all, honestly, right. If we all harness the feminine and operate from feminine. I mean, the masculine comes in when it needs to. We all have both, but the masculine is not something we should operate in. The masculine should be a tool that we use when we need it to get something done, but Perfect. not in a I'm the CEO, whatever. And it changed everything. It changed my relationship with my team. It changed my relationship with my husband, with my business partners. It changed the entire business. It started operating, and our growth was exponential. Our revenue was exponential. There was a direct correlation to the way that I actually led the company. And so, and honestly, I don't think that the company would still be here, and I don't think that my marriage would still be here if I had not shifted those gears. I would have run everybody off. And
what a great distinction.
I did not have the energy to do Paleo FX by myself ever again, so it would have ceased to exist. And so I mean, that has been one of the most key shifts for me in my business.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for your wisdom and sharing that distinction. And it's such timely advice for this time of looking at how we have been operating. Is it really, serving us? Do we need to pivot? For women, are you coming from that place of feminine leadership, right? We are a mix of both. But when it comes down to it, we want to operate from a place where people trust us, that we're showing up authentically. And I think it's so important to know that, we are all in this together. So I so appreciate this conversation today and you being here with us and sharing it. And then for our guests that are out here listening, thank you so much for sharing your time here with us. We're talking about building these virtual communities, and you are part of that, and you can help in sharing this message and getting it out there in ways that we can start looking and pivoting at things differently. If you feel like you've been giving your power away and that you're not really standing in who you truly are, then I also have a free resource for you to go to resetyourpowergift.com. That will also be in the show notes so that you can start seeing where can you start making these pivots. We're in a place of looking at things differently. And I really hope you take to heart what Michelle was sharing today. And we'd love for you to rate and review, and also put in the comments where you tag both myself and Michelle if you've got questions, ways that we can support you, that you can come from more positivity in your life and share from that place. So until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Thanks so much.